Alison, LCSW, serves as an Assistant Vice President of the CCDHC. Her responsibilities include the operational and clinical services for outpatient mental health and substance use program. Alison has worked in the Bronx, and I take my hats off to anybody that can work in the Bronx. If you can work in the Bronx, especially the South Bronx, you can work anywhere. So I take my hats off to you guys from the Bronx who work in the Bronx. Alison has worked in the Bronx since moving to New York in 2005 and enjoys working with communities that are often overlooked and watching the resilience shine. Her passion is to bring creative ways to help people make a difference in their own lives and the lives of those they care about. Alison has been a master level clinician for 25 years and has worked with a variety of organizations and agencies whose focus has been the mental health of people in underrepresented communities. Let me read that again. Alison has been a master level clinician for 25 years and has worked with a variety of organizations and agencies whose focus has been the mental health, and I heavily say mental health, of people in underrepresented communities. Because as we all know, in our community, let's not be shy about that, whenever you think you need mental counseling or you say, you know what, I think I need counseling, you're looked upon. Black people don't get counseling. Black people don't see a counselor. That is a lie from the pit of hell. Don't let anybody let you feel bad for saying that you need counseling. You want to go in on somebody's sofa and tell them what's going on? Your insurance pays for it, you want to pay for it? By all means, you go ahead and get your counseling. Do not listen and let anybody stigmatize you and tell you that we don't need counseling. Especially with what's happening now, hey, we all need it from time to time. Let me continue. Whether it was working with at-risk youth identified by their school system in the DC area, running residential programs, and working on crisis teams in the Boston area, to now merging her skills to address substance use and mental health in a holistic way, teamwork and a commitment to healing has been her clinical focus. It's with great pleasure that I introduce to you Miss Alison.
Good morning, everybody. Do we need to stand and stretch, or are we good?
We're good.
I'm going to take 2 minutes and hand some stuff out. Is that cool with everybody? Okay. Because you can't do mental health and not have fun. So, Alison, do you mind if we help you? Please. My team knows what I'm doing. Okay. Heels up. Take a folder. Don't look too far into it. Everybody wants to look. Do it. Here you go. There we go. There you go. Thank you. 4. All right. Everybody have a big folder in front of them? All right. All right. Good morning. Oh, you got some back there too? All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me with you. I'm really honored to be here with you. Again, my name is Alison. I am a clinician by trade and have worked in the Boston, DC, and now New York area. And if anything tells you, I am 12 hours from going on vacation. But I'm excited to be here with you. So, what I would like everybody to do, open up your folders. The first thing you should see is a heart. And then you should also have crayons in front of you. So what I would like for you to do for just a moment is choose a color for each of the 4 topics. So our topics are family, health, finance, and career. And our colors are red, green, blue, and yellow. So you can circle, you can color through, you can check mark, everyone has their way. So just take a moment and identify 1 for each color. It will make sense, I promise. Okay. So now what I'm going to ask everyone to do is just sit for a moment with your eyes closed. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, just sort of look down. And I just want everyone to take a deep breath and center themselves. In through their nose, count to 4, out through their mouth. And think about what family means to you, what you define family as. When you hear the word health, what does health mean to you? Finance and career. Is it the career you have, the career you want? Is it the money you have, the money that you want? The health you have, the health you want? And then I'd like for you to take those colors that represent each of those things and fill in the heart by coloring how much it's affecting you right now, negatively. How much of your heart negatively is family as you define it, taking up your heart? How much is health negatively filling up your heart? And so forth and so on. And I promise I won't ask to share so no one's going to see it. And again, think about what do those words mean to you when you hear family and you hear health and you hear finance and career. How does it make you feel? Think of it in a negative space. And then what I'll ask is when you're done, just to flip it over. So why did I choose these things? Why did I say family and finances and health and career, right? These are the things that bring us their greatest joy, but also sometimes our greatest heartache, right? And these, if we think about these four topics, right, these overarching topics that we can all say we have our different definitions about, we can start to see how our own mental health can be affected by them and how mental health can be affected by those. Does that make sense? So if our mental health is in a place that we are feeling good about it, one would hope our finances are in place, our definition of family is in place, our career is in a place. But if our mental health isn't in a place that we want it to be, those may be skewed. And so what I want to be able to do this morning or this afternoon with you guys for just a little bit is just talk about what does that mean, right? Putting the me back in mental health, right? What we often do is forget about ourselves. What we often do is worry about everybody else around us. And I want to take the next 15 minutes or so and put it back to you and what's important to you. And share some ideas and share some thoughts. If everyone's cool with that. Hi. What is mental health? It's going to be interactive. No one wants to hear me talk. What is mental health? When you hear mental health, what do people hear? What do they think? Emotions. Stigma. State of mind. Stress. Crazy. Right? Everybody. Do you need to have this? Yes, I do. Oh, I need to have it. Sorry. So when we hear mental health, people have different definitions. And oftentimes, it's about the experience that they've had, either with a family member or with themselves. And what's really important to understand when we talk about mental health is that language matters. The words we choose to use when we talk about mental health matters. Because you never know who's listening. You never know who may be struggling with something. And the words you use is going to determine if that person is going to talk to you or share with you or even confide in you or think that you can be a partner in them. Or, worse, go, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the problem. So words matter. And what we can see in the news and what we can see in the newspapers and what we can see oftentimes when something happens, people like to use derogatory language, shocking language, right? When they talk about mental health issues, to shock the system. So that we can all say, oh, I would never, because I'm not that. But what happens is, then stigma. Someone over in that corner said stigma, we're going to get to that. Right? So language matters. The words we use matter. Right? And the thing that we often forget, it's going to be profound. You're going to leave here going, oh my gosh, I never knew this. Ready? Everyone get a pen. You cannot outrun your genetics. Right? So it's not that somebody did something wrong and now they have mental illness. It's not that they were the worst daughter and now you deserve it, or you're a bad parent and now you deserve this. Right? Because mental illness is genetic, just like diabetes, just like heart disease. How many times have we heard about marathon runners who are in the best shape and all they eat is lettuce and they die of a heart attack? Right? Because it's genetic. There is the genetic heart disease in their family that they cannot literally outrun. So when we start talking about and understanding mental illness and mental health issues, it is so important to understand that nobody did anything wrong. It's just part of our genetic makeup. Just like how I went gray very early, thank you, Dad. It's part of our genetic makeup. We can't outrun it. But what we can do is treat it, just like we do diabetes and heart disease. And the less we talk negatively about it and place blame and shame, the more folks can talk freely about it. And the more those folks can talk to other folks so they understand. And the more those folks can talk, they would have a better understanding in a community of people who understand. Does that make sense? Here's the other thing. Contrary to popular belief, the children around you hear everything. The children around you see everything, even when you think they don't. And so the words we use matter. We see kids all the time that say, please don't tell my mom or dad because they say people like me are crazy. So kids hear, kids understand. So stigma starts at home. So the more we can do to help others understand what's going on and what it really means, the more we can be impactful on a different generation. Does that make sense? And then the other thing that I think is really important when we talk about mental health and what is mental health is trauma. Now I'm not going to dig deep. We're not going to get into having a therapy session. But what's really important about trauma is this. Trauma is trauma. Meaning trauma is individualized. There's no two traumas the same. We can have the exact same experience. My reaction is my trauma, and your reaction is your trauma. So the worst thing anybody can do when there has been a traumatic event in your family, in your neighborhood, in the building that you live, is to say, suck it up because I'm okay. If I'm okay, you should be okay. Your sister's fine, why can't you be fine? Because we know that trauma affects every single person differently. The other thing we know is trauma isn't instantaneous. It does not, it happened, and now I have the results. I have the symptoms, I have the reaction. It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years. But trauma is trauma is trauma. And it comes out. And everybody has a different reaction. And so I bring that up because, again, really important that we understand everybody has different results. Everybody is different. And so kids see and hear. And it's really important we talk about it. All right, stigma. So I want to talk a little bit about stigma, but I don't want to talk about it in a treatment way. I want to talk about it in the off-cuff things we say. Maybe to our friends or to, each other. Sometimes stigma comes out in suck it up. Or let's just pray on it, it will go away. Or you'll outgrow it, you'll be fine. Right? I can remember playing sports and my parents would say, just rub some dirt on it. Your broken knee will heal, just rub dirt on it. Right? That idea of just figure it out. Mental illness doesn't do that. You would never tell someone with diabetes to just get new friends who don't eat sugar. Right? It's the same concept with mental illness. So it's really important that we pay attention. When someone starts acting differently than they had been, notice it, say something. In a way of, hey, I noticed that you've been a little bit sadder lately. Is everything okay? You'd be amazed by what that one sentence can be. Because sometimes we think people don't notice because we're all so busy. But that one sentence can be really impactful. But stigma can come across in many ways. And it's really important that we just be mindful. Right? If we're driving and we see people on the side of the road who are asking for money, or we're in the subway, be mindful of the words we use to describe the people. Right? Everybody is a person first. They may be a person with mental illness, but they're a person first. They're not a crazy person. They're not a mentally ill person. And even just that shift in language can change the perception. Make sense? All right. So the other thing that's really important when we think about mental health and mental illness is coping skills. Everyone knows what a coping skill is, like how I deal with stress. So the other thing that's really important around stigma and understanding is what works for me may not work for you. And sometimes what we find is people will say, oh, what works for me when I feel stressed is I eat a pound of grapefruit. And what I find is that just helps me feel alive, right? That's not going to work for everybody. And so when you're talking to your friends or your family or your colleagues or your neighbors, when you start talking about what works for you, understanding that that may not be what works for them. And so language around, hey, when you have felt like this before, what's worked? Because I know when I've felt like this, I've tried this. Sometimes, again, just that shift in language allows that door to open even a little bit to have that conversation. And vice versa. Saying to your friends, have you ever felt this way? Because I feel like I'm not myself. Have you ever felt this way? And hey, what's worked for you in the past? Sharing coping skills can help, but also understanding things can be different. Anything can be a coping skill. Anything. But not all coping skills can be healthy. Right? How many times on a Friday do you go home from work and go, oof, I could go for a bottle of wine right now? Right? It's a coping skill, but it may not be healthy. Right? Or you just had a bad week and you want to buy a new purse. I just bought a new purse, that's really pretty. Right? Maybe not healthy. But everything can be a coping skill. You, because you're an individual person, are going to find what works for you. And then make sure it's healthy for you. Just like trauma is trauma, coping skills are coping skills. Everybody's got it in them. You just got to figure out what works and what doesn't. And just because it worked for your best friend doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Does that make sense? And then knowing what works for you when you're not in it. And when I say in it, meaning you're not in the throes of your mental health crisis, means that you'll be ready to use your coping skills when you're in it. So if I know that walking around my block at home allows me to clear my head when I'm stressed, when I get stressed, I can say to myself, okay, now that I have to go walk the block because I know that helps. Not waiting until in the stressful moment to go, oh gosh, what should I do? So understanding what works for you and being ready to utilize it is going to help you when it's time to utilize that skill. So almost like preparing for it. Does that make sense? Yeah? No? Yes? So one of the coping skills I use is reading. I like to just sort of zone out. And so I asked some of my colleagues if they knew of any good books around mental health, both fiction and nonfiction. And so in your packet, you'll see a list of some books that maybe you would be interested in reading. Some are fiction, some are nonfiction. The nonfiction, I just wrote a little descriptor. There's also a couple websites if you want to get some information. Also talking about 988. Is everyone aware of 988? No. Good, we're going to spend a couple minutes 988. Okay. 988 is a national hotline, so anywhere in the United States of America, you can dial 988 from any phone, and you will be connected to someone in your area, because now it's not based off of your area code, it's based off of geolocation, to talk to. If you're having anxiety, if you're having depression, if you're having suicidal thoughts, if you're having substance use issues, if it's 4 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're available. I'm not going to get political and talk about what just happened, about the funding that was, but there was a little bit of funding pulled on. Okay. But it's available. So 988 is always a resource, it's 24/7. So that's always a good thing to have, and please share it with your loved ones. Because that is something that if you feel like you can't help, if someone's in crisis, it is not the police. I'm going to say it again. It is not the police. They do not come to your house. It is not a police and an ambulance coming to your house and taking you out of your home. It is someone who is trained in crisis response on the other side of the phone to talk to you, to offer support, offer resources. And it's a real easy number to remember. So please share it with everybody. Okay? My contact information is at the bottom too if you need more information, but I just wanted to give you that. I know I just sort of threw up a lot of stuff at everybody. Does anyone have any questions before we end with another exercise around mental health, mental illness, language, stigma? Yes.
So how do you, and I know that...
You need a microphone?
Thank you so much. So, in my line of work, there are many people that you can actually see that have some sort of mental something going on. How do you you can't force it. So what's the best way to kind of coach them or direct them to someplace where they might feel safe to talk?
What do you do for work?
Okay, so I work for an agency that serves hungry and homeless Long Islanders. So we are always seeing, street homeless, underserved population, immigrants. So, yeah.
So what do they do in that situation, especially if I'm assuming that these are folks that you've seen a couple, 2 or 3 times, and created a relationship. One of the things that we found often is art, right? Sometimes people don't know the words to use, right? And so one is you can always use art and say, hey, could you draw me how you're feeling today? Because it feels less intimidating. Right? And the art, I can tell you the art will show you more than their words will ever say. Right? So that's one way. Also just acknowledging maybe to them, like, hey Mary, I noticed that you seem a little sad today. Is everything okay? I'm always available if you just want to chat. Because the thing you've got to remember, and we all have to remember, is depending on the generation, people have always been told, don't talk about how you feel. Don't talk about what's going on. And what we don't know is people's past. Have they been disciplined for talking? Right? And so it's easier sometimes to start with something that is like art, because it doesn't feel like they're talking. right? If you Google like therapeutic coloring, it'll give you like coloring sheets that talk about feelings. And so sometimes, even if they're adults, our adults love it, but there's even the coloring faces, and you can say, hey, John, can you color or point to how you're feeling today? And that might just open the door enough, and also not reacting, right? Sometimes what's happened probably in the past is they've told their story, and the person they told their story to went, I don't know what to do now, and then they shut down. So being able to have a space where they can tell their story and you're still willing to talk with them and providing a safe space may be just enough. And then I may reach out to some of the providers in the area and have them come in so that they get to see and meet, not for anything more than, oh, they seem friendly, maybe I could talk to them. That might just be a couple of things.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For the 988, do you have to identify who you are?
No. You do not need to identify who you are. What I can tell you is that they do have your phone number, but you do not have to identify and say, my name is Alison Mailing and that kind of thing. What will happen though is, if it elevates to the point in which they are concerned, they may ask that information because they want to get you some help. But it's confidential, it's anonymous, it's really just to offer support. But if it elevates, they may want to do that. You guys are getting mixed up. Good, because I know how many.
Hi, my name is Commissioner First, and I'm the Executive Director at Harlem United in Harlem, New York, and we have a few facilities, but I wanted to answer Cynthia's question of what the work that we do. So we have a peer navigation program, and what peer navigation is, it's a client, it's one of our clients that go out and actually look to help others. And what that peer does is share their story through art, because we have art therapy and other types of services, and it does help. Exactly what you said in regards to art, unfortunately, art therapy, that program, it's not offered to people as they have HIV. The regs just changed, regulations just changed, so we can treat people without HIV, but some people have that stigma that they don't want to partner and work with people or go into a facility with HIV positive, because everybody's going to think they're HIV positive. But peer navigation works because you have the peer sharing with others. You know, mental health services that I receive at Harlem United has changed my life. And sharing their personal stories. The only problem that we have is that it's hard to retain providers. So when providers leave, that mental health provider, the clients feel abandoned because of trauma and other things that they tend to sometimes leave but come back. But that's why we try to look for providers that look like them, that can connect more. That helps too. Absolutely.
No, that's a great point about peers, and you know, that's the big push, and I'm a big proponent of peers. People with lived experience can treat and touch people with lived experience. That's a connection that those of us who are providers, we don't have that opportunity. And so peers are the best. And so if you can find programs in your area, a CCBHC is always the best way to sort of try that, because there's peers, but there's other programs that have peers. That lived experience, that connection to be able to truly say, I've been there and I can help you because it helped me. It works.
I had a question about the 988.
Yes.
If a person calls 988 and they feel that your crisis needs more of a support and it escalates, do they call 911?
Yes, they will patch it through to the local 911. But oftentimes they are trained in de-escalation, and so I don't have the numbers and I can't even try to tell you how much. Are you going to tell me that I'm wrong? No. But yes, the idea is to de-escalate it so it doesn't get to that point, but they can patch through as much as I understand.
Yes, sir. I would just like to add that the city has mental health first aid classes that teaches the ordinary person to identify trauma and be able to have the resource to point them in the direction for help. I'm at the leadership position in Pepsi, and you would be surprised the amount of young men that are met with existing trauma that comes from generational trauma that is passed on. And it's transferred to children, and it goes through generation because it was not healthy. So if we can start identifying the trauma and dealing with it so it doesn't recycle for our whole lives, and that's what causes crime and all these degeneration of society. So we're touching issues now that affects everything else in our lives.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So mental health first aid, I believe in it because I'm a trainer, so I'm with you on that. So mental health first aid, what it teaches is not how to diagnose, and it doesn't teach you how to treat, but it does teach you how to identify. And it does teach you what to look for. And so if anyone's interested, reach out to me and I can try and connect you on how to get some of that training. But it will really help you. And as far as the generational trauma, I think what's really important to understand is, just like you can't outrun your genetics, right? Things get passed down, right? And so we need to really be mindful of that. And again, kids listen and hear. And that's part of, I know for us, that's why one of our focuses is to put clinics in schools, right? So that we can start some of this work when the kids are younger. Because it's needed to do the work to understand ourselves. So thank you for that. Thank you for the mental first aid piece. Any other questions? I think those are great questions. So again, you have my email. Please feel free to reach out, except for the next week, because I will be at the beach. But I promise I will reply when I get back. Okay, do not look at what you did before, but I'm going to ask you to do it again. But this time, again, I want you to choose the colors. Be mindful of why you chose the colors. Why did you choose red? Is it because you love it, or is it because it's a negative? It's the one biggest negative you have. Does green represent the thing you love the most, and that's why you chose the green? Or is green because it's envy? And it's because what you want to have the most. Again, close your eyes or look down, whichever you're comfortable, and just sit with it for a moment. And now I want you to do the heart again, thinking again of your family as you define it, your health as you define it, your finance as you define it, and your career. And now I want you to fill in your heart from a positive lens. How much of your family is there positive as you define it? How much of your health is a positive lens, finance and career? Try not to look at what you did before. I want Oprah's aha moment, so don't ruin it for me, please. And when you're done, I want you to just compare the two. Is there any similarities? Did you use the same colors when you looked at it from a negative versus a positive? Did one take up more than the other? And if there's a stark difference, that's where you can start your own mental health journey. That's your starting point. I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you a perspective. If nothing else, just remember everyone's journey is everyone's journey. But everyone has the words and the tools to just say, hey, how are you feeling today? And that might just be enough. So thank you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day.